So Amy Sousa, aka @KnownHeretic, has on Twitter has been active in women's rights campaigner for the last 3 years, has organized rallies in Washington, D.C. to protest Biden's executive order, has protested gender clinics in Seattle, the UN in New York City, protested men in women's sports against Leah Thomas at the NCAA Championship in Atlanta, and most recently staged a press conference event in Amy's hometown of Port Townsend, Washington State, which received international news coverage. She has testified on behalf of women and girls' sex-based rights in state legislatures and school board meetings. She holds an MA in depth psychology and leads workshops, classes, and individual coaching, which focuses on embodied awareness. She has informational videos on her YouTube channel, and we'll put the link in there. And other work can be found at littleredreverberations.com, and we'll put the link for that. So thank you so much for coming, Amy. And I'm going to hand over to you to your talk.
I held a press conference called LetJulieSwim. Julie Jaman is a friend of mine. So what happened to her is on July 26th, she was swimming at the YMCA pool. This is a pool that she has gone to for 30 some odd years. She's took her daughters there when they were little, and you know, she was getting out of the pool. She was in the showers. She's behind the flimsy curtain, and she heard a man's voice. She looked out from behind the shower to see that there was a young man, and this man was watching little girls take off their bathing suits in order to use the bathroom. Now, as any woman would be, she was very shocked and horrified. She asked him if he had a penis. He told her that's none of her business. She said, you know, this is not right. You cannot be in here. You need to leave. At this point, another staff member entered the room and, you know, sort of was trying to surmise what was going on. Julie said to this woman, you know, you need to tell him that he needs to leave. At which point, instead of listening to Julie or having any care for her very real concerns, she was told that she was a bigot. She was told that she was harassing this young man, and she was told that she was banned from the YMCA pool for life. She immediately went to the management. The management repeated what the employee had already told her, that she was being a bigot, that she was harassing, and that she was banned from the pool for life. They also said that they were calling the police on her, and they tried to tell her that she couldn't leave. She is a pretty feisty lady. She didn't go along with that. The way that the town is situated, the police office is just outside really of where the YMCA building is. Julie said, I'm going to the YMCA, to the police myself, which she did. The police took her report and her record. They seemed sympathetic, but ultimately Julie was very confused and concerned. She was highly concerned, and she was confused, of course, why this man would be in there. She called me when she got home because she knows that I speak about these issues, although it hasn't really been something that was on her radar per se. She knows that I do talk about it. And immediately we decided, you know, she was going to write a letter to the paper. We were going to go to the city council and talk about this, which she did. So she was able to go to the city council and speak about this. And her main points were that there was no signage. So there was no way for her to know that this was a, you know, quote, gender neutral restroom. So there was no unisex or even gender neutral signage. The signage simply said woman. She spoke to Wendy Bart, who is the director of the Olympic Peninsula YMCAs. Wendy told her that the rainbow flag at the entrance should have been sufficient for her to surmise that there would be men in the restrooms, that these were, all that men who identified into womanhood would be allowed. So at this point, the city was already beginning to villainize Julie. Our mayor, David Faber, was beginning to villainize her. And I began to realize that something more needed to be done. While I understand that these events are familiar to some of us, I think, and I have protested these kind of things before, I think it is always a shock to see it happen in your hometown. And it does make it really personal. And Julie is a friend, so that makes it personal. So I got together with her and I began to have a press conference, and the town had a response to Julie. The mayor decided to create a transgender proclamation. So they decided to have another city council meeting to announce the language of this transgender proclamation. Now, the proclamation is a series of whereases ending with a therefore. And the therefore is, therefore, Port Townsend is a town that is non-discriminatory. They don't discriminate against age, race, religion, or gender identity, especially against trans people. So the proclamation was about how the town especially does not discriminate against trans people. So, or, whatever that is. So this, of course, was very concerning, and I planned this press release to be on the same day as the city council meeting that was going to present this information. And we planned the press conference to be 1 hour before the city council meeting was beginning, so that we would have plenty of time after the press conference to head over to city council to express our concerns to the city council. The focus of the press event was on women and girls. So this was very clear in how I spoke to my team. It was very clear in how I spoke to the police. I was in contact with the chief of police of my town. I got a permit for my event. I had multiple conversations with the chief of police, Tom Olson, in which I explained to him, sometimes what can happen at these events. I also explained to him that the majority of my group would be elderly women. I asked him what his plan was to keep our groups separate and safe. I told him that women would be unsteady on their feet, and we would need to keep the group separate. He, in our conversations, seemed to listen. He did seem to be friendly to me when we were speaking. However, I couldn't really imagine what happened at the event, because he did seem to be having a back and forth dialogue with me. Not only was I in contact with him, on my team also was a police liaison who was also in communication with the chief of police before the event. My police liaison was the one who I thought would go between my group and the police at the event. I invited a bunch of women. I saw some of them here in the chat. I invited my Tacoma friends of Sovereign Women. And I invited really anyone who would come, but really there ultimately ended up being about 35 of us. So there are about 35 of us at the event, and there were probably 350 or more people who were protesting my event. When the event began, it began in a way it began in a way that was okay. So we began with a song. Myself and Jennifer Thomas and Gabrielle Clark sang I Am My Mother's Savage Daughter. And it was very interesting because a nice hush fell over this crowd. But really, as soon as the speeches began, the crowd started to move in on us. And by the time Julie was speaking, the crowd had pressed us against the wall. We had linked arms to keep them at bay. One man literally rolled on the ground and wormed his way between our legs in order to infiltrate our group. This, of course, was very disturbing to see. It was scary in the practice of it. We held our ground for the entire time. But what was the most concerning, of course, is that the police had no real response. So anyone who has seen my live stream or other women's live stream of this, you can see that the police are standing off across the street and not responding. I know multiple people called 911 during the event, which is our emergency line here in the United States. They were told when they called 911 that the police were on site. Of course, they were on site, but not doing anything. So, and the whole time, the crowd was simply screaming at us, "No hate here." So it was a real cognitive dissonance, because as they were screaming "no hate here," they were moving in on our group. They were trying to steal things out of our hands, our equipment. They were trying to break our phones. They were stealing our suffragette flags. They tore one woman's shoe off. They knocked elderly women to the ground. They were, doing real violence as they screamed this. It had very much the feel of a modern day witch hunt, where when the town becomes a mob circling the wise women elders, because these were, again, this was very much a group of majority elderly women that this was happening to. When I had interacted with the mayor before this event, I was expressing to the mayor my concerns about what this transgender proclamation would mean. The mayor had responded to me with zippity boop. So this was the mayor's response to the legitimate concerns of women who want our single-sex spaces. And for me, the entire press conference was really about sexism. That was the topic of my speech. And that was where I wanted women to focus their speeches as well, because this is about our sex-based rights. This is about safeguarding. This is about women and girls having spaces where we can be naked and vulnerable and safe. And while the town is saying they do not discriminate against age and race and religion and gender identity, this is a sex-based discrimination. This is an issue of sexism. And I wanted to make clear in our speeches that sexism is an issue that is falling out of social and political consciousness. The other disturbing thing, so this was the point that I wanted to make in the press conference. It's also the point that I wanted to make when addressing city council. And this was the other disturbing thing to see, is that we were not allowed our due process. We were not allowed inside the building to share our feedback at city council, because the other side had lined up at like 2 or 3 o'clock around the corner. We had spoken to the police officers to see, were they going to make sure we had equal access to get inside the building? We were told simply, no, it's a first come, first serve situation, and fire codes only allow a certain amount of people. So we were not given our due process to get inside the building. The event was very disturbing. The press conference was very disturbing. Anyone who saw the event, it was very disturbing. But an interesting thing has come because of it, in a way, because they told on themselves with their behavior, which is really what they did. You know, they showed themselves as villainous in their behavior towards us, and we have now used that. My team and I put out a number of press releases so that this story has really blown up and grown. This story has reached multiple countries. The Daily Mail covered our story. Tucker Carlson here on Fox News, who is everyone's right-wing media that they love to hate a little bit, but he has a great audience of 4 million viewers, saw this story. Of course, it's been in places like Redux, who we all love, and Post Millennial and Colette, and places like this. But I think that is sort of the great thing that can come from these events. It was interesting that this event took place in my hometown, and so I had a real opportunity to respond, and in a way that was personal to me. And these events, when they happen, we kind of already know how we're going to be responded to. I didn't have really much of a different expectation from my town in terms of how they would respond. I knew that people would be upset with us. I knew that my city government was not going to take our concerns seriously, but the opportunity really by staging something like the press conference is to tell our own stories and voice our own values and create our own media narratives about it. And I think that we can take these opportunities the way Kelly J. Keane has taken them with Speaker's Corner in the UK, and take these opportunities when they show up to create our own media and to create our own messaging about what we want to see. And that's ultimately what we've done. And that's what we're going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to do that with this event going forward. There are more events that I have planned around this, and there's more information that I'm trying to gain. So right now I am in the series of getting more public records requests I am in the process of learning about the communications that were had between the chief of police, my mayor, and the city manager. So as those details come to light, I will continue to shed light on this story. And I think that Julie is a really special figure in this, because as an 80-year-old woman, you know, a lot of this was not truly on her register. She had heard me speak of it, but it wasn't something that was hitting home to her. And I think this demographic of women are an interesting demographic to meet, because they don't have the same language to talk about these issues. Julie has been educating herself as she goes about what's going on here, but she responded as any woman would. You know, she responded out of herself and her own history when she heard that man's voice. And I think that really resonates. Her story resonates because everyone can sense how true it is. The town is doing a lot of work to villainize her, but it's very hard to villainize an 80-year-old woman who was standing up for young girls. And I think that's why her story has so much power and meaning, and we'll continue to share this story and tell it more.
What do you think motivates these three groups? The city manager, the mayor, and the chief of police to implement this and actually obstruct your side or our side?
They don't want to have to actually grapple with the logic of what we're saying. So of course, by obstructing and keeping us from being there, they don't have to really deal with it. You know, their narrative right now is that we're a hate group, that I'm a hate group, and that I organized a hate rally. so they didn't really have to listen to what I was saying, because if they had listened to what I was saying, everything was pro women and girls and about the needs of our bodies. So by silencing us and villainizing us, they don't really have to grapple with the reality of what I'm saying. But what I think they think the story is over or fading, and what they don't know is that I am gaining in momentum. So I will be at future city council meetings. I will be continuing to address this to the town, and continuing to get some kind of a respectful response, at least, because their response right now is so full of disrespect and dismissal of me and my concerns and Julie and her concerns, and frankly, it's gaslighting to women to ask us to deny our own instincts around sex. It's a psychological abuse to a rape survivor. I'm a rape survivor. So to tell me that I should not trust my instincts when it comes to sex reception, that's absolutely galling and abusive. I think they can control the narrative, but they can't.
The other thing, I was interested in the story that they tried to implement this, or did implement it a few years ago, and in this swimming pool, but they didn't tell anybody. And then, so when Julie went in, there was no sign up saying we've now changed it. It was just that she was meant to somehow know. So, and I think that's really, really worrying, because that maybe is going to be the new normal, that we're going to just be going into lots of situations where was it that they put an LGBTQ plus flag up and they said that's how Julie was meant to know there were going to be men in there?
The crazy thing is, it wasn't even the new flag. It was the traditional rainbow flag. That was it.
That was their defense. They were saying, we don't need to tell people that we've got this policy because we put a little flag up.
They have a rainbow YMCA banner at the podium at the entrance. And by that, you are supposed to understand there will be men in your spaces. And yes, Kelly Traylor Harms, I should mention, is a YMCA whistleblower. She was in an interview with me on Graham Linehan speaking about this, where exactly this policy was put into place with no public commentary and no, as you said, no announcement, zero announcement. So just people have to find out the hard way that this is the policy. And I've had many parents come to me and thank me for speaking out on this, because of course, parents who have little girls, they don't want to see this. But, they also see what happens to people who speak out. And, a lot of people are still scared to speak out. But I think the more of us that do it, then the more we can gather others to have the courage to do it as well.